I think one of my boys is going to call in today.
Beautiful.
Hell yeah. All right.
He's a IU fan.
Ooh, that'll be interesting.
Okay, we're live. All right, three, two, one. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Voyage College Basketball. Special time for the boys, also kind of a somber time for the boys because we're winding down to the end of college basketball season. We have a Final Four set up. Um, UConn and Alabama and North Carolina State and Purdue. I think ultimately it's going to be a great Final Four. We're going to dive into all that, plus our reactions to the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight. I'm your host, Cam Erickson, and I have two co-hosts with me today, John Dittman, Don't Bet Bad Clubs, and our guy Lordy Ray is with us as well too. We're taking live phone calls and texts as well too. 612-888-9501. How are we doing tonight, boys?
Doing pretty good. We had a little nice Monday, had a solid Easter. Happy Easter, fellas. Yeah, you mentioned it. We're getting into the time of the year where I got on my TV right now, LSU Iowa, for all intensive purposes, is the most exciting game right now. And then I got some baseball, which is fine, except for the fact that I can't go golfing because the weather's not nice. It's a tough time right now. But we do have a great Final Four and a lot to talk about.
Yep. Ray, how you doing, brother?
Doing well. You guys summed it up pretty well. I don't know if it was either a late Easter or I'm sorry, an early Easter or a late tournament. I'm not sure which one it was, but having some Final Four or Elite Eight action on Easter was pretty cool. I
Yeah.
think the last time that happened might have been Kevin Ware because that's something I remember um,
Oh,
from
Really?
damn.
I just remember it happened on Easter for some reason. Um,
Interesting.
but yeah, dude, it is sad that it's starting to come to an end, but I think we're gonna get absolutely treated with these matchups this weekend. I think it's gonna make for a really good ending to the season. How are you, Cam?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm doing great. I couldn't agree with you more. I think, we've got all the storylines here. We've got UConn just continuing to be absolute world beaters. And I just want to say this. I mean, I want to open the floor to you guys to start off the show here. Just ask you what do you think the biggest storyline was from the Sweet 16 and Elite Eight? Obviously, there's DJ Burns, there's the North Carolina State Club making the Final Four, Purdue's first appearance since 1980, all these things. My biggest takeaway was UConn and how impressive they were. I I think I tried to fade them both rounds, so just much to my demise. Listen, what was most impressive to me about that was Illinois is no slouch. That's a team that won the Big Ten tournament. That's a team that was scoring the ball at will. They didn't show up out of the locker room, and I think it has more to do with how solid UConn is playing right now. Um, I mean, just absolutely crushed their will in the second half. It wasn't even funny. So that was what was most impressive to me and what stood out the most to me. Johnny, what do you think was your favorite storyline over the weekend?
Yeah, I have to agree. I think UConn's dominance is it should be the headline of all news platforms. The 30-0 run in the second half was incredible. And I think
Yeah.
what we could be witnessing here, and I'm not interested in the argument or the discussion about are they the best ever college basketball team, but surely they're one of the most dominant teams I've ever seen in my life. It's just impressive because I don't think this team is really even playing that well. I think they shot 17% from three-point land or something like that. They're not really shooting that well. They're like the team of intangibles. Their intangibles overpower everything else, and it's really impressive to watch. Danny Hurley has done a great job. Yeah, I think it's got to be UConn.
Ray?
Yeah, yeah, I agree completely. It's definitely UConn's dominance. I mean, who did they play? Who did they play? Was it Thursday? They beat the crap out of San Diego State.
Yeah.
Yep.
Kind of looked like a game early, and then all of a sudden they win by 30. But same thing on Saturday. I mean, I think it's the only 30-0 run in since 2019. Um, and that game was actually crazy too. Ohio went on a 30-0 run against Cleveland State, and they were already up 20 at the time. So that was kind of insane. But yeah, I mean, Klingon was great. They kept running into his body and throwing up shots, and he was just blocking them. But you're completely right. They do all the intangibles well. They play good defense. They didn't even shoot the three ball well, but they just run such a
Right.
crisp offense.
Yeah.
There were so many times I was shocked during that run where like they would get a rebound and start to kind of like jog it up to the floor, but then all of a sudden there was just someone wide open under the basket and they'd
Yeah.
toss it up.
I know.
A part of me almost like, I don't know about how you guys felt, but it almost felt like Illinois' like will just got taken, and I don't know, it just something seemed kind of off.
Well, yeah. And I mean, if you would have told me that Terrence Shannon had like 2 points until late in the second half, I would have told you, yeah, UConn probably dominated the game. I mean, it's just and Illinois didn't play like horrible in the first half. They were competing.
Mhm,
They missed a lot at the free throw line, I think, if I recall correctly. Like they probably should have been leading that game at halftime.
mhm.
Um, and then it just got out of hand really fast too. A lot of fast break opportunities for UConn. They're just dominant. Um, it was super impressive. But like I said, that Illinois team is no slouch, and what they did against them is scary.
Yeah, and just to touch on some other storylines, we obviously have DJ Burns at NC State looking pretty legit. Although Marquette shot the three ball horribly and Duke shot the three ball horribly. Duke's just shot the ball horribly, period. Um, I mean, not to take anything away from this NC State team, but I don't know if they're going to have the same type of success against Purdue. It's just such a more consistent offense, and obviously, like they can just throw it down to Edey and he'll get fouled. That is such boring ball to watch. I honestly didn't watch much Purdue this year, but I watched the Tennessee Purdue game, and man, that just sucks. It just sucks to watch. It's a bad product.
Yeah. Well,
See, what I was
go
saying
ahead.
at Easter is it is horror. I have no disagreements, but when you have money on Purdue, it is
Oh
electric.
yeah,
You get every call, and
yeah.
it does. It seems like they go through like a solid, what looks like they're going to run a solid offense, and then the first option just doesn't hit, and it's like, all right, let's just cut the crap and give it to him.
Hmm.
And he does. I mean, he just has that right hook, and he does a pretty good job passing out of the post. And one thing I want to mention about NC State, remember in the semifinal of the ACC tournament, it took a OT buzzer beater to beat Virginia for them to be here, which is crazy to think about now.
For sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And talking about NC State a little bit more too. I mean, that Marquette game, DJ Burns had 4 points. He only had four
Yeah,
points. He chipped in with 7 assists. He was pretty good on the glass too, I think. I mean, but it was all the other guys stepping up for NC State too. It's just like when they tried to double Marquette really like emphasized on double teaming DJ Burns, and it got a little bit out of hand. They were double teaming him in places where it was like out near the 3-point line. And then he was just finding the open guy, and everybody else kind of stepped up. So NC State's been a lot of fun to watch, man. And it just really impressive. Not sure how they're gonna fare against Zach Edey, but yeah, I actually have started to come around on Zach Edey a little bit just
yeah,
because everybody's hating him. I understand the product isn't very good and it's not very enticing. It's like the foul calls, the way that the refs handle the whistle on him is a little weird, but it's almost like they he puts him in such a tough position. It's like I don't know what you're supposed to do. But there was a few questionable calls in the Elite Eight against Tennessee for sure. But I've almost come to like him just because of all the hate he's received, and he just shows up to the game in like a 5X Carhartt T-shirt, and he just goes to work. I don't like how he's saying that he was all overlooked and all that. I'm not buying all that, but um, looks like we're receiving our first caller of the show, so I'll go to the phone lines.
this should be
Hey, you're
interesting.
now live on Voyage College Basketball Podcast. What could I do for you?
Yeah, I was just calling in. Just want to talk some Gopher basketball. I've been listening to podcasts for a long time, but it's my first time calling. I was just wondering what your recent opinions of the Gopher basketball team in the portal was.
All right. We'll take a look. I haven't been following too much of the portal news specifically for the Gophers, but Johnny, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Pharrell Payne, Carrington, a couple other guys have entered the transfer portal, which is ironic because the irony of Gopher basketball, it's really something. We hire Ben Johnson in the hopes of getting a bunch of the local kids. Well, he got some solid local guys who I thought were going to stick around, but apparently they're not going to. Pharrell Payne, as I mentioned, transfer portal. He's a solid player, Park Center kid. That one really hurts, was really surprising and kind of telling. And my take really is I don't have it's this isn't Ben Johnson's problem. The problem is the Gopher athletic program as a whole. They need to cough up the money. They need to play ball. And if they're not going to play ball, then their teams aren't going to be good. And it's just that simple. And if you want to say that that's not right and money should be, that's a separate argument. We're dealing with what we're dealing with right now. There's no reason why Gopher Athletics cannot they raise money for far less. You can raise money to pay players to have solid teams. So it's just one of those situations right now, and it's hard to watch.
Well, do you think a part of that has to do with the entire Gopher community hasn't really bought into the basketball program, especially lately? There's a lot of other things going on in the Twin Cities. We've always talked about you're competing with the pro sports market. They're not only competing with that, but there's a lot of people like hockey in Minnesota too. There's a lot of money going to
Yeah.
the hockey program, things like that. So I'm not sure if that has anything to do with it.
It could, and I understand that argument, but it's just like I said, people have raised money for less. Like the excuse of the pro sports and stuff, it's hard for me to really like to be like, oh yeah, I guess, and settle on that because it's just the athletic department at the U is just not. And I think that Gopher basketball it's been a tough sledding here for a while now, but this year was a pleasant surprise. They were watchable. They were fun to watch. You had Pharrell Payne really coming into his own, Cam Christie, and people were coming around on Ben Johnson, and he's gonna have to be a portal mongerer here. He's gonna have to really work his magic, and we're not going to see a lot of local kids, which is unfortunate because there's a lot of good local talent in Minnesota that just never stays.
Yeah. We're getting sidetracked a little bit from our previous discussion about the Final Four clubs, but I want to ask you real quick about your other favorite club. The Louisville
Mm-hmm.
Cardinals did make a
Yep.
hire at head coach finally. Pat Kelsey is coming to town from College of Charleston. So what did you think about that hire?
I'm excited. I think they took a swing at a guy that maybe not ready quite yet. I mean, it's hard to contemplate a guy that coached at Charleston is going to be on the sidelines at a program like Louisville. I think it's one of the better jobs. I think that the Dusty May thing was really interesting because it was all but certain he was going to Louisville. And I think that if we took a step back and gun to our head, what's a better job, Louisville or Michigan? We would have probably all said Louisville. But it might be something too that I was thinking about. Maybe the ACC is just a conference that coaches don't want to coach in because it's kind of a loser conference. It's kind of the guy that's left out. You want to be in the Big Ten or the SEC. It kind of seemed like that in a way, but I like Pat Kelsey a lot. I like what he did. There's already good transfers coming in, so I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's hard to argue about the ACC though now with NC State making the Final Four,
Yep.
Clemson in
Yeah,
the Elite Eight, Duke, UNC was right on the cusp as well.
yeah.
So the
I
teams that
wasn't
they put in the
talking
tournament made it.
necessarily. Yes, that's correct. But I'm talking about like football and everything, like
Yeah.
teams leaving
Well, it's
and
obviously
you don't.
leaning. Yeah, it's becoming a Big Ten SEC nation, right? Like,
Mhm.
Correct.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah. And so I guess that's kind of my point. You don't want to be stuck. You don't want to be in Oregon State, Washington State. You're caught with your pants down a little bit. And that's what it kind of seemed like with Louisville.
yeah. let's go back to the Purdue conversation. I wanted to let's touch on all these Final Four teams and where they're kind of sitting right now, and then we can go back and look at the Sweet 16, Elite Eight, any takeaways from there, and then we'll preview the actual matchups. So going back to the Purdue conversation, I found myself actually kind of starting to root for Zach Edey a little bit. I mean, it was hard to argue his dominance on Sunday. It was very impressive. 40 points, ton of boards. I mean, they just it looked like Dalton Connect and Tennessee. They were doing everything they could to try to stay in that game. They were hitting shots. It was a great ball game. That was probably my favorite ball game to watch of the tournament so far. What do you guys think?
Yeah, and I didn't mean earlier to say that I don't think Zach Edey's a good player. He's incredible. He even does some of the little thing. I don't know, like if you can call it a little thing, since he's always parked under the basket, but like he does rebound really well. He offensive rebounds really well. Um, he's just a tough matchup, and yeah, not to take anything away from him. But yeah, I mean, he stepped up. He gets to the free throw line a lot. It's kind of that's kind of his bread and butter, but he can make free throws, which for a guy his size is pretty impressive. But I do think that they have like some of the key pieces this year that they were missing last year. I think Lance Jones was a nice pickup for them, a guy that can defend, but also a weapon on offense. And then their guards have grown up this year in Lawyer and Smith. I think last year that was a big knock on them, is just that they were starting at, I think they were both freshmen last year. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're starting two kind of undersized freshmen at the guard position. And we saw the press kind of hurt them at times, especially in the game they lost to Fairleigh Dickinson. So those guys have matured a lot. They picked up a few key pieces, but you return the player of the year and he's playing at the same caliber. So they're a tough team to stop.
Hey, we've got a caller on the lines here, so I'm going to go to the phones. You're now live on Voyage College Basketball. What can we do for you?
Yeah, how we doing? I just had a quick question that I wanted you guys to maybe talk about and consider. Pound for pound, if Caitlin Clark was a guy and LeBron James was a girl, who would be the better player? And a follow-up question would be, would the two consider having a child together to have one of the best basketball players of all time?
There's a little bit of speculation there, but I think we can address that. Thank you for the call. More slapdick commentary from our callers. Nothing less would be expected from Voyage college basketball callers at this time. So
now what I will say is it's a little bit interesting, don't you think?
Sure.
I mean, that question did take some thought. I mean,
Yes.
What if LeBron and Caitlin Clark had a kid? I imagine they'd be good at basketball. LeBron as a female and all that's wild. I mean, I imagine a hybrid of Brittany Griner and Candace Parker with a little bit of Maya Moore.
Yeah, so that's kind of the route I wanted to take. Is I was thinking, like, how do you answer this? And I think the first thing you have to do is say to yourself, whose game would they resemble? You know what I mean? Like, what girl resembles LeBron? And then I think the easy answer with Caitlin Clark is probably Steph Curry, right?
Right.
LeBron's a tougher one. I don't really know. Maybe like a Diana Taurasi. Was she pretty big?
Yeah, I mean, I think she was good. What about I mean, does
Sabrina
anybody
Ionescu?
Oh yeah, there's her too. Yeah. Does anybody know how Caitlin Clark's game is going to translate to the next level? Is that like a thing, or is it just a for sure gone conclusion that she's just going to be unbelievable in the pros?
I mean, I don't know. I have no clue about the WNBA landscape. I'm unqualified. Right. I'm unqualified to answer.
Yeah, we are.
Well, I do think that Steph already set the precedent that like that play style and obviously being undersized can have success.
Right. Yeah, it's just like one of those things. Like Zach Edey's, he's gonna be a G League, D League player, play overseas. Like he's not gonna play in the NBA. Is there a similar situation in women's college basketball? The unfortunate part of this is we are drastically underqualified to answer this question.
Yes.
Going back to the Purdue conversation, Johnny, do you have any thoughts on what the Boilermakers are doing well right now?
I think it's just the credit that Matt Painter deserves for the transformation and what he's created in Zach Edey. What it really is he's taking the 3-second rule into his advantage with that. And
Right.
yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty incredible when you think about it. I mean, you have a 3-star, 4-star, whatever he was. He was not a 5-star recruit. And he played at IMG Academy, and yeah, I think it's credit to Matt Painter. And like Ray said, the guards, Braden Smith is playing much better. I still don't understand why teams don't uh, try to pick up the pace a little bit with them and make them uncomfortable. And maybe it is they just aren't. They're just that good. But when Foster Lawyer's hitting shots, they're a different team.
Yeah.
Braden Smith could not guard Dalton Connect, and I don't know why they kept trying to do that.
I don't either. They didn't have anybody to guard him.
No, they didn't have anybody. That's probably what it was mainly.
Yeah.
But yeah, they found a way. So let's talk about the final of these 4 teams that are remaining. The Alabama Crimson Tide. They got we're getting another caller here, so I will actually
we'll put that conversation on hold.
I'm sorry. Well, yeah, put that conversation on hold. We'll go to the phone lines. Hello, you're now live on Voyage College Basketball. What can we do for you?
Thank you. Good evening. First off, I'd like to say the Louisville Cardinals made a gargantuan mistake by hiring Charleston's guy. Richard Pitino is obviously the best option, and I think Chris Dimmitt would definitely agree on that point. Secondly, my question is, who would win in a mile race? Don't Bet Bad Clubs or DJ Burns? And subsequently, how many chicken McNuggets would DJ Burns eat after defeating Don't Bet Bad Clubs?
Very, very interesting question. I'd like to take that. Thank you for the call. We will address.
Yeah, I want to address this mile thing.
Okay.
Long distance running is not my thing. Now, quickness, 40-yard dash, I like my odds. Okay, but I haven't ran over a mile in a long time. I think I need a lot of chicken nuggets, to be honest with
you. See, I knew that, and that's where I was going to say, no offense, but I think DJ Burns has you outpaced there in a mile race.
Too.
And how many McNuggets is he going to eat? I mean, how many can you buy? Do they still have the 50 tray size? I mean, that guy could probably crush at least 100 McNuggets. I don't doubt that.
You'd have to get 2 20s.
Yeah.
And as far as the first question, I would like to put my 2 cents in there. I don't think Richard Pitino would have been a good hire for Louisville. I think they went with the right guy for the job. I don't think Richard Pitino was all that interested in the job particularly either, because I don't know that he would like to be in the shadows of his father, and constantly be compared to Rick all the time. But that was an interesting conversation. And I mean, Louisville fans were hyped about the possibility of that. At least some of them were. It seemed it was a little bit divided, but I think they got the right guy with Pat Kelsey.
Yeah, I just think I think that I wouldn't want that for Richard Pitino. I wouldn't want him to come into Louisville in the state of the program and try to turn it around. I think he does. I think he would be if you look traditionally at a hire from a big school, Richard Pitino would be a stretch, right? Stretch hire. It would be a gamble. So you might as well just really roll the dice with Pat Kelsey, because I don't think that let's say Pitino doesn't turn it around in 2 years, he's going to get canned. He knows that. That's probably why he didn't really want the job.
Right.
So, but Chris Dittman's pretty hyped up about Pat Kelsey. He's never watched Charleston in his life, but he's hyped.
Yeah, and Pat Kelsey has had sustained success in the Postal, what used to be the Colonial. So, he's got a pretty good track record, although I don't think I know the past 2 years they made the tournament, they weren't able to get a win. But regardless, always kind of competitive and atop the conference in the CAA. And that's something that, Pitino hasn't really, earned yet, I guess. He's still somewhat unproven. I think he was under 500 in the Big Ten over his career at Minnesota. He was under I believe he's under 500 overall in the Mountain West Conference. Only talking conference play.
Yeah.
And the Lobos have not played a Power 5 opponent besides Clemson in the tournament in the past 4 years. That was shocking to me. I think they need to put together a better non-conference resume and overall resume. I mean, granted, they won the tournament, but like they finished 7th in the conference.
Yeah.
So that was part of what I saw from Louisville fans on the negative side. It was kind of a mixed bag. But
Right.
yeah, a lot of support for him as well. A lot of people seem to be excited about that. But I think on Twitter, if you just go search someone's name, you're obviously going to see both sides of the coin.
Right. All right, let's get back on track here. Alabama, the Crimson Tide, they got 2 nice wins. They beat UNC in the round of 16. Huge performance from Grant Nelson. I think he was a difference maker in that game. UNC just seemed to make a few key turnovers. I mean, Baycott was sloppy late. They just didn't come up with any clutch plays. Alabama came up with all the clutch shots, the clutch plays, the 50-50 balls. It just seemed like they were and I'll give Alabama a little bit of credit too, because they gave up 54 points in the first half of that contest, and then they buckled down on defense a little bit, something that we have been questioning whether or not this Alabama team can do all year. And they held the Tar Heels to 33 points in the second half. And Alabama comes back, wins the game, and then they start off slow on Saturday against Clemson. Really looked ugly early on. They just weren't hitting any shots. They stormed back late. I think we were on Clemson first half, and it just killed us. I mean, they ended up winning the first half and then kind of taking control of the game from that point. So this Alabama team, like I said, I think the biggest question mark we had on them all year was their defense and their ability to prevent teams from scoring. But they're playing good basketball right now. They're going to have their hands full with UConn, but I think it's a very interesting matchup. Thoughts on the Crimson Tide?
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
hats off. Go ahead, Ray. Go ahead.
sorry, I was just going to say in terms of their defense, I think what they're also doing really well is rebounding. They're ferocious on the glass. Now they did get a big performance in the Elite Eight from Stevenson and Pringle. It was surprising to see Pringle out there making free throws because he's got one of the ugliest free throw strokes in the nation.
Yes.
But yeah, those couple guys came up big, and I honestly think Mark Sears is well, I think if Alabama were to go all the way, he'd probably be the favorite for most outstanding player. But he makes some really clutch shots, and yeah, I thought there were a couple bad possessions late for Carolina. I think they were lucky to get by Carolina, actually.
Yeah.
Withers pulled up for a 3. I think they were
Yes.
like late, and I was like, what is that shot? I don't think he's a good 3-point shooter. So just some mistakes down the stretch. I think their last possession, I think RJ Davis just kind of threw up some crap and either got blocked or turnover or something like that. So it was right there. It's one of those that could have gone either way, but Bama was just a little more clutch down the stretch.
Yep.
Yeah, the Carolina game was pretty disappointing. RJ Davis with an all-time stinker. Him and Caleb Love. That would have been a great
Oh, yeah.
Elite Eight matchup. RJ Davis, Caleb Love, but neither one of them wanted it. So we got Bama Clemson, and I want to tip my hat to Clemson. I've been kicking myself since the last time we recorded because we were big on Clemson the beginning of the year, and then something happened, and I don't know what it was. I think it was an ACC play, and we all just kind of jumped off. We didn't talk about Clemson at all in the second half. That's what's really frustrating is we were on point with that one, and for some reason it got lost in the shuffle. So I want to tip my hat to Clemson. They really battled in that game. As for Alabama, I think it's they're shooting well. I mean, it's just that simple. Like they're shooting well, and the problem with that, in my opinion, is look at the opponent in the Sweet 16. North Carolina, they didn't shoot the ball well. Look at the other Elite Eight teams, Illinois and Illinois. If you don't shoot good, you're not going to – Duke. Look at Duke. If you don't shoot good, all of a sudden you have a bad night and you really get exposed. And so that's the worry with Alabama, but they're an interesting piece into the Final Four.
Yeah. First Final Four appearance ever for Alabama,
Yep.
and they get to take on a UConn club. Now the interesting thing here, and kind of why we're getting a phone call, and this guy's tried to call in multiple times. So I'm going to go to the phone lines again. Hopefully, we're not getting hijacked.
Wouldn't that be something?
Hey, you're live on Voyage College Basketball. What can I do for you?
Hey, I don't know if you guys have seen the news recently, but there's an article recently called something about the LSU basketball team being dirty debutantes. Can you guys speak on that?
What was that? They're being called what?
There's a sexist article on the LSU women's team dirty debutantes. I don't know if you guys could speak on that. I don't know if you guys follow the women's game, but that was just something that kind of touched me a little bit when I was reading it. And I just would let you guys speak on it.
All right, we'll address that. Thank you for the call.
I think before I address this question, I need to know what a debutante is.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to.
My vocabulary does not extend that far, unfortunately.
A young woman of aristocratic or upper class family background who is making a formal entrance into society.
Yeah.
So is it like a bat mitzvah for like white girls or what?
I have no clue. It's we're getting questions about, again, a topic we're drastically underqualified to really even comment on.
That's right. That's right. We're gonna stick to what we know here. I guess let's dive into we kind of went through these Final Four teams. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Final Four matchups then as they currently stand. Alabama and UConn is the late game on Saturday. Alabama's getting 11.5 points against UConn. Now, here's the thing that I was going to say about the Final Four when you're talking about shooting effectiveness shooting the basketball. In this situation where the Final Four is played inside of a football stadium as it is now, we've typically seen some teams struggle from outside and shooting the basketball, especially early. So that's why I think this game could be interesting early. It scares the hell out of me to fade UConn, but I think if you're going to try to do that, the right move here would be to take Alabama plus 6.5 in the first half. I think that it could be an ugly kind of game in the early goings, and if Alabama is able to hit enough of those shots, but I don't know that they have the defense to kind of dig in when they're going to need to in the second half to give themselves a real chance to win this game. 11.5 is a lot of points though, but I think it could be close early. Do you guys have any thoughts right off the top on this matchup and those numbers there?
I think the lines insinuate blowouts. I think we're headed towards a heavyweight bout right now between UConn and Purdue. Now, as for just the game itself, it sounds nice plus 6.5. The problem is I'm not going to take that. I've gotten hooked the last 3 times I've taken first halves. But they think that could go one of two ways, Erickson. I mean, think about it. I agree with what you're saying in the NFL stadium. It's going to be tougher to shoot, but that definitely favors UConn. UConn hasn't shot good all tournament. I mean, they really haven't. You look at their numbers and they haven't been good, but they've still been drilling teams. It's all these intangibles. It's how hard they play. It's all these things. So, I mean, I think the line's probably a little bit inflated, but I mean, UConn's going to run away with this. I think
Total's at 161.5, by the way. So
I don't play totals anymore either.
Ray, how do you lean in this?
Well, I'm looking at it right now, and I almost, obviously I agree with everything that Johnny said, and I'm wondering if there's an angle. Well, there's obviously an angle to just if you like Alabama, you probably take Alabama money line. I think if they're going to make this interesting at all, they're just going to have to kind of go nuclear from 3. And in that case, they can beat anybody now. This, and then on the flip side of that is if you like UConn, you just lay the points because they're an absolute wagon. And if Alabama's shots aren't falling, this has disaster written all over it because Alabama's going to play with pace. They're going to give UConn a ton of opportunities to score, and if they're not answering, then we could see a double-digit lead balloon right away. So I think that's the way I would lean. I'm either going to take UConn with the points or I'm going to take Bama on the money line. And then I don't know. I'm trying to find some player props right now to see if there was an overreaction on maybe like Pringle points or Stevenson points, but I don't see those numbers yet. So maybe closer to game time, we'll be able to look at those.
And we did get a texter that texted us a couple days ago asking for our opinion on this show today, if we had any particular player props that we might be interested in going into the Final Four. So if we do, feel free to answer that. I'm seeing point totals like Mark Sears, his number's set at 20.5. Tristan Newton, 16.5. Klingon, 15.5.
What's Burns' points total?
And then going to the other matchup, we'll take another caller here. Good evening. You're live on Voyage College Basketball Podcast. What can we do for you?
Awesome. All right, I just got a quick question about Jared McCain. I was just wondering if you think his nail polish affects his jump shot. Thank you.
Thanks for the call. Interesting question there.
Really thought out. No, I don't think it does.
I would only say if it's like a bright color and it's maybe the first time he's trying out a new color, spring flowers are blooming, maybe he goes to something more bright. Maybe the first couple of times his hand goes across his face and he sees a flash of an unfamiliar color, could possibly catch him off guard. But I think that's why, a guy of his caliber spends a lot of time in the gym getting reps up, practice how you're going to play. I think that's what it comes down to.
DJ Burns' point total is at 14.5.
Yeah, I would take the under there. And I would take the under there because I think he's going to get into foul trouble right away. Especially against Purdue. I don't think he's going to play a lot. And like we mentioned in one of the Elite Eight Sweet 16 games, he scored 4 points and they still won. So he's a fan favorite, but how much does he really affect the game? I don't know. And I think that he's going to get in foul trouble. They're going to get him out of the game right away.
Well, I hope that you're not right, just because I'd like to see it be a ball game. And I think he's been slithery enough, although, going up against Zach Edey in the post is obviously going to be a different beast. I mean, you can slither past him with a nice move and his arm can still reach out and block you or affect your shot. It's going to be interesting to see how North Carolina State game plans for Purdue. By the way, the line in this one, just so that we're all on the same page, I'm seeing 9.5 at most shops right now that NC State is getting. Total of 146. Actually, I lean North Carolina State. I lean the Wolfpack with the points. If you're asking me today, I understand that the lines are kind of indicating blowouts maybe in both spots, but first game of the day, again in the football stadium, could be interesting for North Carolina State to keep it close. And they're just playing such good basketball with a lot of confidence. I don't doubt that they could probably figure out a way to game plan and scheme something up where they get some open looks and keep things closer than expected. But I think you're right. We're on a crash course here for Purdue and UConn in the championship.
Yeah, I think Johnny makes a good point about Burns getting into foul trouble and how tough that would be for NC State. I think Middlebrooks has contributed pretty well, and they have some other size in like is it Diarra?
Yeah, Diarra's been pretty solid. He fouled out in the Elite Eight though.
Yeah, so I don't know if they have the scoring options, but they have been playing really good defense. And I think that's kind of their I think that's the only thing that's going to be able to keep them in this game is if they can slow the pace down. I see an over/under of 68.5 in the first half. I wonder if that's going to be kind of a conservative start to the game, sort of that feeling out process that we talk about in a new
The
stadium.
first game of the day. I like that.
Yeah, in a new stadium that they haven't played in. That's probably one I'm going to look at. I think there's an angle for the first half under.
Johnny,
Yeah,
any thoughts?
I like that a lot. I think that's super sharp. I think it's similar to the first game of the first weekend type thing, and you're playing in a new stadium perhaps, and especially in the football stadium, as we've mentioned before, is difficult to adjust to. But yeah, I think the Final Four I like the Final Four and how it's set up right now in terms of the teams. I think you got the two heavyweights. I think you had UConn and Purdue, who, I mean, have been the best teams all year. I think it's safe to say now. And then you kind of have a wild card dark horse in Bama, and then you have a Cinderella in NC State. And I think NC State's it's a similar one to, it would be like a San Diego State in a way, where it's like a power conference. They can play with them. They're not going to get necessarily blown out. Like physically, they can handle it. They play in a bigger conference. So I think the field for the Final Four is fantastic. I just think we're gonna. I mean, if it's Purdue UConn in the title game, that's gonna be one of the best matchups, probably since Gonzaga Baylor.
And we do have another caller here, so we'll go to the phone lines. You're now live on Voyage College Basketball. What can we do for you?
I was just wondering if you think that the matchup for DJ Burns is going to be a little easier. And Zach Edey has been going into girls' rooms. I don't know if you guys saw that video of Zach Edey going to that girls' room and then also him talking about having a boner.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's just kind of a funny thing that came up. But I actually want to know if you guys, your opinion on it, because I feel like he might not be super focused in on basketball and might be an easy matchup for DJ Burns.
All right. Well, thank you for the call. That's very interesting, and we'll address that. Thank you. Well, listen, the video is being overblown. All right. A superstar athlete taking a woman into a closed room. Never seen
Yeah.
it before. I mean, come on. Let's be
Well,
real here.
to comment on the video though, all class by Zach Edey.
Yes, correct.
He opens the door for her. He seemed, yeah. I mean, a classy move by Zach Edey. I think I gained actually a lot of respect for him. As for the comment, I have a boner. I think that's hilarious.
It was funny. It was funny. I mean, I don't get that. I don't blame the guy for being aroused that they just won a regional and are heading to the Final Four.
Right.
I don't blame the guy.
How can you?
Yeah.
It's nice. It's nice to know he has a personality.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. Yeah. Going back to your comment about just the overall field and the matchups that we've got here, the only thing that I'm going to say, and I'm still kind of stewing on this, is that Houston Cougars and the way that they had to go down against Duke, losing Jamal Shed in the Sweet 16. I mean, I think they would have won that game. I think they probably would have beat NC State as well too, although that's hard to say. The way NC State's been playing, but Houston came out, punched Duke in the mouth. They were really handling things. It was going the way that I predicted it would. And they were the more physical team. They were stronger, more athletic. All the questions that everybody had about Duke after their loss last year against Tennessee, the physicality of the group and everything, it kind of bit them in the ass against NC State a little bit, because once NC State went on a run, they couldn't really do anything and get themselves out of that rut. Although it was probably just more of a shooting issue, but Filipowski fouled out. But anyways, going back to it, it still hurts me that Houston's not in this group anymore.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I'll never forget 2024 Sweet 16. Jamal Shed goes down. That was such a lock. I think if he plays, they for sure. There's no question in my mind. They win that game. They beat NC State and are in the Final Four. And that would have been a perfect way. I mean, that was Houston's game the entire way until Shed got hurt. It was played out perfectly. Houston was going to win by 6 points, and it wasn't going to be close. But it is what it is. I mean,
yeah, it pains me for the guy, but
yeah, He was probably my favorite player in college basketball this year.
Yeah. I mean, Duke barely edged it out without Shed on the floor. So,
Right.
And that would have been one of those matchups. We've talked about the Purdue backcourt having struggling with the
Yes.
press and especially teams being more physical with them. That would have just been such a fun matchup to watch.
It would have been great. I know.
Yeah, we got robbed a little bit, but like we said, you can't take anything away from North Carolina State.
No, certainly not. And like to your point about the pressure, like I don't even think Houston would have needed to pick up full court against Purdue. They would have just
No.
dug their heels at half court and pressured them in the half court, and it would have been a serious problem. And what's funny about Houston is they don't have a guy over 6'10". Their tallest guy is 6'9". He plays super physical. They all play physical. They all rebound. It would have been a real challenge for Purdue. I don't think they could have just passed the ball around trying to look for a good look and then just dump it into Edie against Houston. It would have been a great matchup.
And what would the whistle have looked like in that game too? Like, would they have, let Houston play their game, or would Purdue have been getting the calls? It would have been an interesting dynamic to see how that was officiated.
right. Who is your guys' biggest disappointment from the Sweet 16 and Elite Eight? Mine was probably Marquette. I mean, they were not competitive at all. I thought that Marquette had a outside chance to do something interesting. They had a favorable matchup against NC State team. I thought they could impose their will a little bit. I thought they probably would have been a good matchup against Duke as well too. It would have been really interesting to see them against Houston, but it's just disappointing. Shaka Smart, there's going to be questions there. We got another caller chiming in, so we'll go to the phone lines again. And thank you for calling Voyage College Basketball. You're now live. What can we do for you?
Hey, I appreciate it, sir. Long time listener to the podcast. I'm just a little disappointed in all these questions coming in. I have a daughter that goes to Purdue University, and I just wanted to know, as a father, what would it be like in your shoes to have your daughter walk into Zach Edey's room and just see that video surface online, and it's not even about my daughter, it's about Zach Edey's gameplay.
Well, let me ask a clarifying question for you. Are you telling me that it is your daughter featured in the viral video of Zach Edey?
I can't confirm for sure. I'm in talks with her right now, but I'm just a little worried about the whole situation.
Got it. All right. Well, I appreciate the phone call, and I appreciate being brave enough to call into the show regarding such heavy details there, but I appreciate that, and we will address. We have a concerned father from Purdue University, calling in about maybe concerned about his daughter. I don't understand the concern, to be quite honest. I mean, it's just college kids are being college kids. It's fine.
Listen, it's a natural thing, especially at a young age, to go about such events. And if I'm a father, number one, what are you doing on social media? Get off social media, start doing yard work, clean up around the house, help your wife out, for Pete's sakes. Number two, I mean, he opened the door for her. He seemed like an absolute gentleman. So in my mind, I don't think you need to be losing any sleep over this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're obviously in college. This is obviously a college student, and it's a time where you're growing up, you're learning who you are, and maybe starting to experiment. So I can only imagine that this is kind of a young woman who maybe felt sort of like a bag floating in the wind, and her celeb critics, I'm seeing that Zach Edey is Christian, and therefore I can only assume that he led her in there to lead her in prayer, possibly for a win against Tennessee or Gonzaga. I don't know when this video came out.
That's where I was going to go with this. I'm a little bit confused as the timelines here, because the video almost would appear that this could have potentially been from a year ago, maybe even 2 years ago. I mean, nobody's really given any context as to that. And I have some other issues with it as well too. I mean, who's the guy that's taking the film? I mean, it's just like, give the guy some privacy, give him some
Right.
decency. It's just a little bit rude and inconsiderate. I mean, the man,
Road, yes.
he's acting like a normal college guy. I mean, it's standard. It just, yeah, there's a lot of question marks there. And to the caller's point, I mean, I understand where he's coming from, but yes, Johnny, you're entirely right. You hit it on the head. This guy needs to stop worrying about that and get back to what's important. And that's taking care of the wife, taking care of the family, making sure that his daughter's doing fine at Purdue University, staying on top of her grades, and get out there, do some yard work, and forget about it. Be happy that the Boilermakers are going to the Final Four for the first time since 1986.
Right. There's
I'm
bigger
sure his
things at
daughter
play
is
here.
is very happy about that. Yeah. So
Oh, I'm sure she is.
okay, so going back to that, Marquette was my biggest disappointment. I really thought that there was a chance there. I almost even considered taking a flyer on them um, to make the final, like a little future starting in the Sweet 16 to make the Final Four or to win the national title, just because they were playing so well, and I thought but they just didn't hit shots. They just didn't hit shots. It was disappointing. Who was your
Yeah,
biggest disappointment?
mine was both financially, but also I loved watching them play. It was Creighton. Um, they gave up an 18-0 run somewhere kind of in the middle portion of that game with Tennessee, and they battled back. They were down 4 at one point and got like 4 consecutive stops and just couldn't convert. But I think that they had the goods to compete with Purdue and possibly beat Purdue. I mean, we would have gotten to see the 2 7-footers going at each other. Just some really good guard play, some really good shot making. Baylor Shireman was awesome in the Tennessee game. And I wanted to see what he did kind of when the lights got the brightest. Because I think he's that dude. I think he's very good. So yeah, I thought they were kind of a disappointment. And I think that it was there for the taking in the Tennessee game, and they just didn't hit shots when it mattered.
Yeah, and it was a good ball game. I mean, Tennessee, I think, went out on like a 13 or 15-0 run, and then Creighton just kept hitting shots and kept fighting back. They went on a little spurt of themselves. It was a game of runs, and then in the end, it just Creighton just couldn't do enough at the end. They really missed Trey Alexander's presence. He wasn't hitting shots at all. So there were some things that didn't go Creighton's way, but yeah, it was disappointing. Johnny, who was your biggest disappointment?
Well, I want to continue the conversation a little bit about Creighton, and I felt a little bit of justification, as I've been saying since the moment I watched this team. This team is not a Final Four team. They don't handle the ball well. But with that being said, they did play better than I thought they would against a good Tennessee team. But I think the loser of the weekend, if it's not Marquette, it's got to be Illinois. I mean, Illinois, this team comes out in the first half and is looking tough. It looks like they're war ready. It looks like they're ready for the battle, and then they come out and give up a 30-point, a 30-0 run. And what's really unprecedented. And what's really disappointing about this is I felt like they were hitting their stride a little bit, and I was almost, I was thinking in my head, is Brad Underwood figuring this out? And of course, the answer to that question is no, he is not. No, he is not. And so, yeah, I have Illinois as a pretty big loser.
Yeah, they were playing so well. Terrence Shannon was playing at an unbelievable level, and they just didn't show up out of the second half locker room. I don't know what it was.
Nope.
That's kind of unforgivable. Do we have any other thoughts on any of the things that occurred in the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight? Arizona, Tommy Lloyd, big disappointment. He could be on the hot seat.
Another win on our part. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think he's on the hot. Do you think he's on the hot seat though? I mean, he made it to a Sweet 16.
I don't think he's necessarily on the hot seat, but I think there's some concern amongst Arizona fans as if they're ever going to get over that hump. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. Because it's like, what are you going to do? You're going to fire Tommy Lloyd, and who are you going to hire?
I think they extend him like earlier this
Yes.
season? Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Hmm.
think that Arizona is just a team that, I mean, if they can make it to the, if they can be competitive at the top of their conference every year and and win a couple games in the tournament, I think they're okay with that. I don't think that um, they just are. The Lute Olson era is it's over.
Yeah.
You don't think they
Uh,
have national title aspirations?
well, they're moving to the Big
I
12,
think they
right?
do.
Ah, yeah.
Yes. And I think they do. I just don't think that it's like the national title. It's not like Kentucky or it's not quite at that level. It's kind of like it's not Duke, it's not North Carolina. It's kind of like Illinois. I have Illinois and Arizona pretty similar where Brad Underwood's job is not on the hot seat, right? He had two early exits the last 2 years and now he made it to an Elite Eight. Tommy Lloyd, I mean, he had an early exit, but the other thing too is he's so respected for some odd reason in the industry that he's fine, but I don't know.
Mhm.
A little bit of more validation for the Voyage college basketball guys was Iowa State, and Ray called it to a T. He said a team that they're bound for one of these games where they're going to struggle shooting the basketball, and we talked about it last week on the episode as well too, where it's kind of like they're one of the problems we saw in that matchup against Illinois was is Iowa State going to be able to score and keep pace with Illinois? I mean, that just was kind of the concern. And so it was a little bit of a validation there for us for Illinois coming out on top in that one.
Oh, one thing I just thought of, you mentioned in that game and then also the UConn game, but Terrence Shannon out of nowhere. I think he was like close to an 80% free throw shooter on the season. In those
Yeah.
two games, he was
Yes.
awful. Holy
Yep.
Yeah.
cow. I
Yeah.
don't know
It
what you
almost
really chalk
ruined
that
them
up to.
against the Cyclones.
Yes, it did. He was like, I think he's 5 of 11 or 5 of 13, something like that.
They shot 15 of 29 as a team from the charity stripe against Iowa State. They got absolutely bailed out. Iowa State didn't actually shoot the ball that poorly. I mean, they were under 40% from the field, which wasn't good, but they shot 46% from three. Illinois just kind of did what they wanted to though, and they never really gave Iowa State much hope there other than probably their disparity at the free throw line.
Mhm.
I
Um,
thought it was super disappointing, not just for our wallets, but just in general for my fandom of the sport that Houston didn't beat Duke.
right.
That one really hurts. That could have been a
Yeah.
great storyline going into next year. Duke is just not tough enough. And then they get Cooper Flag. Is Philip Kowski coming back? Is that a stupid question?
Um,
He's projected fairly high in like mock drafts, but that's not to say he won't come back. I don't know.
Right. And McCain is obviously gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, so because I think Duke's gonna be good next year. Would have really led into the storyline going into next year. Unfortunately, that didn't happen.
With
Which is
Flag too.
right, right. They're
Flag
gonna be
is
good,
sick.
really good right out of the gates next year.
Hmm. I will say that Houston losing was, I think that game is the only reason that I'm going to beat my girlfriend in the bracket challenge. So that's absolutely massive for me. Otherwise, she would have had a case for me to stop gambling.
Oh
Um,
no! Oh no!
so they saved my hide there.
Your existence,
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, for all
yeah,
intents and purposes, Lordy's persona was on the line in that one.
yeah, yeah.
It
Your
was
presence.
your persona game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel bad for you, Johnny, because it was a reputation game, and you were right. All signals were right on your read there with the Tennessee Houston parlay. It just didn't go your way with the injury, and sometimes you can't do anything about that. We've got another caller, and so I'm going to go to the phone lines here. Good evening, and thank you for calling in to Voyage College Basketball. You're now live. What's on your mind?
Hey, thank you. Sorry, I'm just really nervous about calling in. I don't usually call in, but I'm just watching the TV right now, and I see that UConn women's basketball is playing USC right now, and I've seen a lot of stuff on the sorry, I'm nervous. I've seen a lot of stuff about Paige Beckers and the matchup between Paige Beckers and Juju. And I was just wondering what your guys' thoughts were now. I'm just watching on the TV and the first quarter ended, but I'm just wondering what you guys think of the matchup.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for the call. I appreciate that. And it's okay that you're a little nervous there. It's fine. I'm severely underqualified to answer the question. I don't know. I don't know anything. All I know is that UConn's a good program, good basketball school. I wanted to back UConn, so I don't know.
Only at Voyage College Basketball would we be hosting a live show to talk about the Final Four and recap the Elite Eight and the Sweet 16. And we open the phone lines, and every question has been about
The women's game.
a topic that we do not even come close to touching. The women's game, right?
Yeah.
I have no thought.
Oh,
Well,
None at all.
I will say I'm skeptical of that caller. They said that, they don't do that very often. It's, one of their first times, but that lasted pretty long for a first time. So, I'm questioning their experience.
I'm also questioning just the we've gotten a lot of different phone numbers here streaming in. So, I go to the lines and I got to answer a call if it's from somebody new, but I think it's just the same guy. We got another caller calling in. We'll go to the phone lines again. Hopefully this is about men's basketball. Hey, you're good evening. You're now live on Voyage College Basketball. What's on your mind?
What's up, fellas? It was a good evening. It was a good evening here, but obviously, me as a longtime women's basketball fan, and then just to talk, I'm trying not to get mad here. Longtime fan, and now we're talking about how we hate women's basketball here. I don't know if that might be a misquote, but that's just kind of what I interpreted from your last comment. Just trying to put my thoughts together here and keep it professional, but just trying to get your thoughts. I don't appreciate that either. Just trying to get your thoughts, on why you do prefer men's basketball over women's basketball, and just your thought process for that. So, just mad that you lost a fan, but yeah, I just want to have the question.
Hey, I'm understand that. I understand that the caller is a little bit frustrated, and look, here's the deal. I mean, I'm just going to be as frank as possible. It's not to disrespect anybody. It's not to disrespect the game. It's not because we're sexist, in any way, shape, or form. It's just that we don't have eyes on the women's game. I can't give you proper analysis on a sport that I haven't followed all year long. And as a side note, I might be a little bit more interested in the game if they lowered the rims. And that's all I have to say about it. I'm not as tuned into the women's game as I am the men's game. So I
I don't
apologize to
think
anybody we've offended.
I don't think anybody on this show has said that they hate the women's game. That never
Right, that
came out
was
of anybody's, and nobody even thought that. We just simply said we don't follow the sport. It's just that's. I mean, what does the caller want us to do? Does the caller want us to lie and act like we know what we're talking about?
Like,
I'm
what's
sorry,
next? Are we
but
going to get MLB questions? I mean, I don't.
yeah, because I don't know anything really about that right now either. Okay, I'm focused on one singular thing. Yeah, that's really all. Like, I don't have. Yeah.
Okay, we're getting hijacked here about this. So we did get a text rolling through, and let's I guess we can try to answer this. What are your thoughts on the refereeing that went on in the Tennessee Creighton game? Did we think that there was any logical disparity in the way that the game was officiated between Tennessee and Creighton? To be honest, I didn't have any problems with it. I mean, I think Tennessee imposed their will a little bit. I think Kalkbrenner ended up fouling out, didn't he?
Yes.
Late in the game. Tennessee was tough. They were physical, which is what we kind of expected Creighton was going to have to contend with coming into that game. And Tennessee ended up making it kind of a game that they wanted to be in. I don't think it was officiated poorly. I don't recall any specific plays that stick out in my mind. Did you guys have any thoughts on that?
No, none that I can think of. I watched most of the game. Didn't have any complaints really. I thought it was refereed pretty well.
Yeah.
I thought the referees have actually done a pretty good job all weekend of just it's been super physical. And it's been consistently every game has been I felt like very physical. I think even Jeff Van Gundy noted that just how much more physical the college game is. Which I think is great. I think it gives it a little bit more spice. And I mean, didn't you guys think that? Like every game, it's like, damn, they're really letting them play here.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it felt like they let them play in a lot of games this weekend, which I liked. Especially also Bama Clemson felt that way too.
Yes.
Very much
Yes.
so. And then the texter also went on to say, where do you think would be a good landing spot for former Gopher and New Mexico guard Jamal Mashburn Jr.? I said this as soon as he entered his name into the transfer portal. I think he needs to go somewhere like UAB.
Mid-major.
Yeah, listen.
Isn't he from Memphis?
He's from Miami, is what they say
yeah.
when in his like intro.
Yeah, he says he's from Miami. I think he's from he bounced around, obviously, father in the NBA, things like that. But
who knows?
Yeah, mid-major was kind of what I was thinking, just because I don't know if he's gonna get like an opportunity to go compete somewhere on a team that's a national title contender or anything like that. And at that point, what are you really transferring for then? I mean, I understand you probably want to take a bigger role and bigger leap. So then a logical landing spot is probably somewhere like in the American Conference, where you can probably be a lead starting guard for somebody and try to, go ball out. I don't know. I don't like,
right. Like maybe the A10.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. But he could come back still, right? I mean, I don't
technically, yeah.
He could, yeah. He's in the
maybe Patino was thinking he was going to Louisville, and so Mash entered the transfer portal and was going to go with him. And now that he's not, it's just one of who knows? It kind of felt like that actually. I
Well,
was thinking about
that
that
would
the
be
other day.
interesting to me though, because then I would have thought that probably Donovan Dent and JT Toppin would have hit the transfer portal as well too. And it seems all signs are indicating that those guys are here to stay. So which is great for Lobo basketball fans. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know about Jamal Mashburn. I mean, he's got kind of two options. You want to go come off the bench somewhere and be a role player for, like, I don't know, Arizona. I mean, I don't know. I'm just throwing out random team, but like
He's weird because he fits into a specific system. I mean, he's not a very good ball handler. He's a good shooter. He's got some game offensively, but he doesn't defend well. And so it's weird. Like who wants a Jamal Mashburn right now?
Some of my friends kind of think, and I agree, that actually a good landing spot for him would be Miami, because they've had like undersized guards kind of. They were missing a spark on the offensive end, but like you said, he's not a premier defender, and that can hurt him at the next sorry, not the next level, but in like a P5 conference. I think you're exactly right, Cam, both of you really, that like for him to take a bigger role in a team, I don't think it's going to be at the Power 5 or Power 6 level, unfortunately. And I think it'll kind of be a question of what his ego allows him to do. So yeah, we'll see what he ends up doing. He could play. He could contribute to like a not smaller, but like a lower tier P6 conference. He just won't be, like a contender. And is that how you want to spend your like final year of eligibility, on like a Vanderbilt or something, putting up 20 a game? I don't know.
Right. Like his best option would be he could go to Kansas and come off the bench.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know how many minutes he would get, but
yeah.
Miami would actually be interesting because they're kind of in this point where they need to rebuild and probably retool and they're probably going to hit the transfer portal hard. Nigel Pack is coming back, so Jamal could play off the ball there. Could be interesting and could be a fit in that system. Let's wrap up the show with one final look at the Final Four, and So North Carolina State and Purdue and Alabama and UConn. If you're asking me off the top, I like North Carolina State plus 9.5, and I like Alabama first half. I think they come out and could compete in that game. I like Ray's mentality where Alabama, if they went nuclear from 3 and just shot the lights out of the ball, we've seen them. They have the ability to put up 100 any given night. So it is possible. Now, my question to you guys would be this: Are we on the crash course to Purdue UConn? And give me a reason why we could see an upset here in either of these games.
I mean, the obvious one would be Bama just shooting 50% from 3-point land and UConn just because listen, I think that I think that they've been dominant in terms of the score. They haven't really played that well. I mean, they're not that impressive. They haven't shot that well, and I think that could be something that catches up to them. I think they're a little overvalued. It's just I don't want to. With that being said, Bama is so inconsistent, but that would be the immediate upset I could see how it could happen.
It's just crazy to me that this, Vegas keeps trying to correct on the UConn line,
I
and this
know,
line keeps growing and growing,
I
and
know.
UConn just keeps covering and covering and covering. And granted, the competition's gone up too, so logically the line would come down. But now it's going back up again. To all the way to 11 and a half, 12 in some places against this Alabama team, who I think, if things don't go UConn's way, and if Alabama can figure out a way to limit what UConn does on the glass and inside with Klingon, if Klingon gets into foul trouble, Alabama could be in business.
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
got
I think
no. Go ahead, Johnny.
no, I didn't really have anything.
I was just gonna say I've got no interest in stepping in front of this UConn train right now. Like
Yeah,
this is normally the time when I'd be saying, okay, like this was the one that got the market just like way overvaluing UConn. But like you said, they just continue to cover, and that's now let's see, they won 6 games last year, so that's I think 10 straight against the spread in the tournament for this team. They're not like any other team. It doesn't make any sense, so I've got no interest in that. But yeah, probably the first half under in the Purdue NC State game. And honestly, that's more of the one where like I can't really find the path for a blowout. Maybe they're able to just kind of double Edie effectively every time, and then if the guards have an off shooting night, um, but I don't see many paths for the underdogs in this round.
and I want to say before we sign off, I think I saw a tweet that in the past, since Ken Palm's been around, the highest rated teams have been it was Anthony Davis's Kentucky team,
Mhm.
and then I think it was the 2008 Kansas team. I believe that was Mario Chalmers. Those are those guys. Probably Perry Ellis was on that team at some point, but those are the only 2 teams that have scored higher than UConn. So that's just it. It's yeah. You don't want to get in front of that train because it could be just history. You could be on the wrong side of it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I don't what about Purdue though? Do you think I mean the line is really weird to me. I just it's higher than the line that Purdue had against Tennessee. I mean, obviously Tennessee's probably a
Yeah,
better team than North Carolina State. I get it, but this is the Final Four we're talking about now. It's first game of the evening.
yeah.
North Carolina State's been playing incredibly well with a ton of confidence. They feel like they belong there. And Purdue, for some reason, Purdue, just the way that they've been playing, does not necessarily indicate to me, especially not as much um as UConn, to where I just think that they're gonna show up and they're gonna cover. I mean, they pretty much blew out a Gonzaga team, but like that's where the line is here. Or excuse me, sorry. No, the line's 9.5. So yeah, I guess Purdue could show up and play like they did against Gonzaga, but I don't know. I just think this Wolfpack team has a little bit more tooth in them. Um,
Well,
but
listen, they have to
that
shoot.
could,
They have to shoot the ball well.
yeah.
They have to. They have to have an all-time night really to beat Purdue. I mean, I watched the Gophers, the Minnesota Gophers, have one half where they shot the absolute piss out of the ball, and they were winning going into halftime. And that's how you have to beat Purdue is you have to jump them right away. You can't get desperate
Yes.
late with Purdue. You have to jump them right away and then somehow find a way to sustain it. Like
Yes.
I feel like throughout this tournament, it's been like we're gonna play this thing out or whatever, and then teams get desperate late against Purdue, and Purdue shoots free throws well. It's not a way to beat them.
I just I'm starting to think that there's like some insider trading or something going on. We talked about it already. We talked about what Houston would do.
Yeah,
Why are teams not pressing Purdue? I
I
don't
don't
get it.
know.
Like, I just went and looked to see if anything could like jump out at me right away. I
Yeah,
looked up their 4 losses on the season against
yeah,
Wisconsin in the Big Ten tournament. They lost a
yeah,
turnover battle 16-5. Ohio
yep,
State, they lost a turnover battle 14-6. Nebraska 14-9. Northwestern
yeah.
17-3. Why aren't
Right.
teams pressuring
I don't
them?
know.
That's
It's
clearly
pressure
the
is what it
recipe.
is. Yeah. Right. Yeah,
You're
you're
exactly
like
right.
the pressing, I don't know if you necessarily need to press, but just the in general pressure of these guys. I don't know why teams are not doing that. I mean, it's clear. Like they pass the ball around, and then it's like, okay, we don't really have an option here. Dump it into them. Well, if
Yes.
you have a chance there to catch them off guard and to turn the ball over, they give you a chance.
Yeah, yeah, and like not even press, just like pick them up full court
Yeah,
or three
correct.
quarter
Yeah.
court, speed
Yes,
them up.
just man. Yeah, just man.
Man, now that really makes me disappointed that Houston didn't make it.
I know. I know. I would have loved Houston going into this game.
Yeah.
Yep.
It is what
Well,
it is.
either way, we're set up for some interesting matchups there, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. So I'm excited. It's bittersweet though. It really is, because we know we're winding down things here. But hey man, I don't have a whole lot more. You guys got anything else before we sign off?
No, I don't think so. I'm pretty
No.
stoked. I think we're gonna have a historic national title game. I really do. It's gonna be a fantastic cap to a great year.
Yeah, and I don't know. We haven't really discussed the schedule much. So if this does end up being our last episode of the season, just want to say we'll obviously be back. Maybe we'll do some off-season episodes talking about the portal, coaching changes, and stuff. But if not, thank you to everyone who's come along this journey with us. It was at least my first year being real consistent with it, and I had a blast. I'm looking forward to many more seasons of this.
Absolutely. And thank you everybody for calling in. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Hopefully we can do a season wrap up at some point here, but obviously we'll be tuned into the Final Four and the national title game. We're always open to interactions on Twitter. We'll get some podcasts in, like Ray mentioned, over the course of the off season, figure out a plan of action moving forward. But yeah, always appreciate everyone's support, even the slapdick commentary on the call-ins. And appreciate everyone's even though we've struggled. I've struggled over the course of the past week. People are sticking around, calling in, interested. A great time of the year. The Final Four is fantastic. March Madness has been a fun run, and we'll look forward to talking with you guys soon. Appreciate it.